Today, I'm going to show you how to create Kelpie Ointment from Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald. The things we'll need to create our Kelpie Ointment jar is one glass jar, and I'm using one that has a wood lid. I love the look of this one. I got this at Hobby Lobby, but I'll try to put a link to a similar one in the description down below. We're going to use some assorted sandpaper. I picked this pack up at the Dollar Tree. We're going to use some ivory or linen colored acrylic paint, as well as some brown and black acrylic paint. And then we're going to use some sponges and paintbrushes, as well as our label printed on sticker paper, and the link for this is in the description down below. Let's get started. Would you like a chance to win one of my potions? Then consider supporting me over on Patreon. All of my patrons have a chance to win a monthly potion bottle. Link is in the description down below. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to color the inside of our jar. So I have already taken some rubbing alcohol and thoroughly cleaned the inside and outside of this jar, just to make sure that all of our paint will have good adhesion. And then we're going to take our paint and we're going to put it on the inside of this jar. The reason I'm doing the inside of this jar is that I want to really rough up and age the outside of the jar, and I didn't want to have to do that with multiple coats of paint. So we're going to do the inside of the jar, which is then going to make it so that it can't be fillable. But honestly, this is going to just look nice on a shelf. It's not probably going to be something that you're going to want to open up and like show ointment in. So I decided to go for the inside. Now, if you wanted to fill this up with, say, gel or a substance to look like ointment in case you wanted to actually open it, then you can do the outside of the jar. It'll just take several coats of painting to make sure that you actually cover the outside of the jar sufficiently. And then I'd probably recommend that once you get it finished that you seal it with like a Krylon clear coat. But we're going to do the inside of the jar today because I'm not going to actually fill mine. So to do that, we're going to take our acrylic paint and we are just going to put a generous amount inside of our jar. Now you could thin this out just a tiny bit with some water, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to be patient. Now what we're going to do is turn our jar around so that we continue to coat the whole jar just like this. And then once we finish that, we're going to put it upside down so that any excess paint can drip out while it dries. Okay, so once everything gets coated, I like to just kind of tap the sides to get any of that excess out. And then once I feel like I've gotten the majority of it to kind of move down with gravity and come out of the jar, I then like to take a couple cooking skewers and just lay them down to set the jar on so that the jar isn't just sitting in the rest of the paint, and it allows a little bit of airflow to happen up underneath there as well. And then I just let that sit for a good couple hours to make sure that it's completely dry. So we're going to let this dry and we'll come back. While our jar is drying, I'm going to go ahead and start to age up the top of our jar here. So I've got some of the brown and black acrylic paint in here, and this is just a little sponge. You could use a makeup sponge, anything like that. And I'm going to just start to add little bits on here. And then I have a paper towel here that I'm going to go around and wipe it down with, because I'm just wanting to give this like a dirty, aged look. It'd be something he handles frequently. It could have been a jar that held something else at one point. I just feel like, you know, it needs to look like it's being used. So I think that's a pretty good start. And I think I want to take my brush here and I'm going to put just a tiny bit of black on here and stamp it off. And then I think we're going to just try to do a little bit of splattering on here. Okay, so I think that's a pretty good little, just roughing it up and kind of giving it more of an aged vibe. And we'll see how our jar is coming along. Okay, so our jar is getting there dry-wise, but it's not quite dry yet. But while we're still waiting for it to dry, I can go ahead and start to rough up the outside. and we can start to age it, and then I'll just let it sit and continue to dry after that. So I've got some different grit of sandpaper here from that packet, and I'm going to start with the heaviest, and we are just literally going to go around and start to scuff up the outside of our jar. So I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this on camera, but I definitely have scuffed edges here and some sanding all the way through the jar as well. So now we're going to take our same sponge, and I'm going to just start to go around and try to get some of this brown into those scuff marks we just made to kind of help with the aging of the jar. And then I'm going to take a paper towel and again just wipe off the excess so that we're left with some of the brown in those scratches and crevices that we just made with the sandpaper. So I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see this. It just kind of went into the little scratches and crevices. So I'm going to do a couple more layers of that on here. Okay, so I've been able to get the paint to stick in all of the little like scratched areas that we made with our sandpaper. And it's just kind of giving us an aged, worn look on here. So now I'm going to take my paintbrush with some black and we're just going to try to add some splatters. Okay, so I'm letting this finish drying, but we got a really great splattered and aged look from our couple different paint effects on here, as well as the sandpaper. So now I'm just going to let that inside of the jar finish drying, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to finish this up. Okay, so now that our jar is finally dry, we have the great distressing on the outside, and we've got the distressing on the lid. And I feel like we're ready to go ahead and finish up this jar. So I'm going to take my label here, which is a little too perfect right now for as distressed as this is. So I want to like take my nail around the outside edge and just start to bend it up a little bit and, you know, give it some creases so that it's not going to look as pristine as it does at the moment. And once I put it on the jar, I may actually like peel up a corner a little bit, stuff like that. We'll do a quick crease to the middle. So we'll start with that. And now we're going to go ahead and put this on our jar here. I think that's pretty straight. And even if it's not, I actually think with this one that would kind of help. And again, I'm just kind of going around the edge and acting like I might try to peel it up. And that's basically just to try to give a little bit of that aged and used look. Okay, and then I have my sponge we used to do some distressing. And I'm actually going to just hit the bottom of this a little bit, since the bottom of this has got more of that brown distressing down here and aging, just so then that way it mimics what's happening below it. Oh, I think now that we've got our label on and it has some matching distressing, the only other thing I think I want to add on here, and I know I didn't mention it in the beginning, is some jute cording. So I think a little bit of jute twine here will actually mimic the lid of our bottle. And we're going to go ahead and put this on. And I think just a little bit right here will kind of tie that little rope detail in the top into the actual jar itself. And I'm going to do that the same way I've done several of our other bottles before. Just enough to add a little bit of that rope detailing. Okay, and I just think that adds a nice little detail to this. And then I'm going to do a method I've done with our jute cording several other times. And I don't do it on all bottles, but I feel like this one, it would make sense. And that's to use a little bit of flame from like a lighter to distress some of the jute twine, and it also gets rid of some of the little wispies. But in this case, it also kind of darkens up the thread a little bit, which I think will look nice with all of the distressing that we just did to the bottle and the top. I'm going to do the same thing with the jute twine up here as well. Okay. Yeah, I think that looks good. And there we have it, our Kelpie Ointment. So I'm super excited for the next Fantastic Beasts movie, Secrets of Dumbledore, to come out. I'm glad that it looks like there's more of a beast interaction in this movie from what we can see from the trailer. And I'm hoping that it bridges some of the gaps that were left from the second film. So I wanted to give you guys a Fantastic Beasts DIY to celebrate the new movie coming out. And I feel like this will be a great addition to our potion and prop collection we've made along the way. So if you guys like this video, give me the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And we will catch you guys later. Thanks so much.